Turning now to Iowa, where testimony is underway in the Metal Pipe Massacre trial.
Yeah, the defendant here is Luke Truesdell. He's accused of beating to death 4 people last summer with a pipe. Yeah, Truesdell allegedly told police that he committed those murders to, quote, make a movie, and that his head felt better after committing the crime. Horrific details. We do want to get you into that courtroom, but before we do that, let's get you a background on this case to catch you up on what you may have missed. Here's Cody Thomas with the story.
Luke Truesdell is charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder for allegedly beating 4 people to death with a metal pipe. On June 5, 2024, Brent Brown, Ramondis Cooper, Amanda Parker, and Kiana Ryan were found beaten in a detached garage in rural Iowa. Truesdell was at the scene when police arrived, and they were told he found the victims. He was questioned as a witness, but he seemed to confess to the murders. According to court documents, Truesdell said he did it, quote, to make a movie. That statement will not come in as evidence because he had not been read his Miranda rights. But what can be used at trial is police body cam footage where Truesdell says, I hit them each, and says, right inside the door on the right is a metal bar when he was asked what he used to hit the victims. He also told officers, my head don't hurt no more. I'll never do it again. I feel so much better. Truesdell was arrested that evening. He has pleaded not guilty.
Fascinating case there. And when this case started, in opening statements, prosecutors warned this jury. They said this is going to be really crucial testimony that is showing you like just really offensive pictures and brutal imagery. Like, this jury has been through a lot. Let's get you back into that court now, where a lieutenant who spoke with the defendant at the crime scene is back on the stand for cross-examination.
When we last left about Luke's alleged confession, correct?
Correct.
I want to talk to you a little bit now about some of the audio that we specifically stopped to listen to when Mr. Shear was asking you questions, okay? Now, the first one I want to talk to you about is when Luke and Mary are re-entering Lon's house, you hear a yell, correct?
Yes.
And you say that you believe it is Larry screaming idiot, correct?
Yes, when he was leaving the house for the first time, after they go to the house, and he's walking down the ramp, it sounded like he said idiot.
Now, when you were listening to this and watching this, did you have any special audio people come in and try to clean up the audio for you?
I did send video clips to NOCIC and ask additional analysts to see if they can clean up that all the video segment.
And were they able to?
No.
Right. And so, when you hear that yell, that is your interpretation of what's being yelled, correct?
Yes.
Correct. When I hear
objection, Your Honor. Defense is talking about his personal opinion. That's an important question.
Sustained, just rephrase the question.
Other people can hear it differently, correct?
Correct.
Similarly, when Luke and Mary are both inside of Lon's house, you say that you hear Larry yell something like, call an ambulance, what'd you do, something like that?
Correct.
Okay. My question there, same thing, you weren't able to have that cleaned up by NOCIC?
Correct.
And so that's your interpretation of what's being yelled?
Yes.
And then the follow-up to that is the obvious. How can you tell it's Larry?
By hearing him yell, I've heard him before many times.
Okay. Here's the problem. We've had multiple witnesses, including yourself, talk about how windy it is that day, how loud it is that day, how impossible it is to hear it is that day. In fact, the state muted their audio for much of playing that video because of how loud it is. How can you still sit there and say that that's Larry yelling?
I've listened to it many, many times. I've watched the behaviors of Larry when he is yelling, and I can hear him when the wind dies down inside the house, on the camera of the house, that you can hear clearly call an ambulance.
Okay. Have you ever heard Luke yell?
Yes, I've heard talk.
But you've never heard him yell?
No.
So, realistically, you're comparing it to nothing, correct?
Not necessarily. It sounds like Larry Truesdell.
I get what you're saying, but since you haven't heard the other people in the house yell, you're comparing it to nothing, correct?
Correct.
And so, again, that's your conclusion, yes?
Yes.
That's your assumption, yes? Now, I want to talk to you about the surveillance footage where we see shadowy heads. Can we do that for a little bit?
Sure.
Now, on the surveillance footage, you would acknowledge that in between where you see the heads walking back and forth and the camera, there is quite a bit of stuff there, yes?
Yes.
I believe there's a van, there's an SUV of some kind, there's a truck of some kind, yes?
Yes.
And you can't see what's behind those, correct?
No.
And in fact, you can't tell anything that's going on behind those items, correct?
Correct.
So only if somebody happens to be walking, I guess, slowly enough and clearly enough, can you even see a person back there, correct?
Correct.
And so you can't tell if people have been walking back and forth back there and you just don't see it if they're behind those items, correct?
Correct. Absolutely. What evidence there is visible.
Okay. And so, it's not only possible, but it's entirely reasonable that Larry went back and forth from the boat to the shed and you just never saw it because you can't see what's behind those items, correct?
I've looked at all the evidence, and that was from statements made by
Lieutenant, I'm asking if you can conclude that Larry never went back and forth between the boat and the house on that surveillance footage.
It's not supported by the evidence I found.
It's not what I'm asking. You can't see it, correct?
I cannot.
Your Honor, ask the answer.
You can't see it, correct?
I cannot see everything back there behind those eyes.
Okay. Likewise, based on that surveillance angle, you can't actually see who goes inside the shed, correct?
No.
You can presume, as well we all can, that the 4 individuals who died, they all went into the shed, yes?
Yes.
But otherwise, you can't tell.
We have reached the top of the hour, so we do need to get in a break, but we'll come back and listen to more of the Metal Pipe Massacre trial, that testimony from an officer in the case against Luke Truesdell. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Court TV, your front row seat to justice. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julia Janae, along with Matt Johnson, who's filling in for Ted Rollins. Thank you for being with us, and we are tracking several major cases across the country here at Court TV this afternoon. We are in Florida. Day 1 of testimony going on right now in the young Ukrainian man who's accused of fatally stabbing his adoptive parents. They are on a lunch break, but they will be back soon.
And in Arizona, it's opening day. Opening statements are underway for the man accused of sexually assaulting and then strangling, or killing rather, a stranger a decade ago.
And in Nevada, the state's case continues next hour for a former adult film star caught in a father-son love triangle, rather. Devin Michaels' trial starts up soon.
And we are standing by in the great state of California, where the mother of missing 9-year-old Melody Buzzard is set to be arraigned on separate charges later this afternoon.
We'll keep you updated on all of these throughout the day. Let's go back now to Iowa for a live trial happening there. The Metal Pipe Massacre trial for Luke Truesdell. We are picking it up with the testimony of an officer who spoke to this defendant at that crime scene where it's alleged that a metal pipe being wielded by the defendant killed 4 people.
A lot of questions that you've been asked since Friday, Monday, now today.
Yes.
Remember defense counsel talking to you about the conversation that you had with the defendant in the back of the squad car on their way down to the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office?
Yes.
And do you remember defense counsel talking to you about defendant's ramblings or stories that he was telling you?
Yes.
watching a raid,
Yes.
story about someone with a high table or someone trying to take him out on a bicycle or motorcycle.
Yes.
And the defendant did admit to smoking methamphetamine.
Correct.
And he told you that he got that methamphetamine from Roe.
Yes.
So you can do your best to talk.
Yes.
And then you remember that you clarified that by asking him the black guy that he hit with a pipe.
Yes.
And when you asked him, was that the black guy you hit with a pipe, do you remember what the defendant did?
He nodded.
So he acknowledged, yes, that's the person I'm talking about.
Yes.
And did you get a urine sample from the defendant?
Yes.
And was that sent to the DCI for testing?
Yes.
And did you get test results back on that urine sample?
Yes.
Your Honor, if I could just ask for the witness screen. Was that anything? Let me know if you see something on the screen.
Ready now.
And we're looking at State's Exhibit 6.9 and 6.91. Are those the lab results from the DCI for testing of the defendant's urine?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I'd ask that State Exhibit 6.9 and 6.9 be introduced into evidence.
Is there an objection?
No objection.
And sorry, to clarify, 6.9 and 6.9.1.
All right, any objection to either of those?
No objection.
Those will be admitted.
Thank you. Lieutenant Egli, just looking at State's Exhibit 6.9, what is this report about?
It is about the drug results.
From the urine specimen that was collected from the defendant?
Yes.
And is just briefly looking at 6.9, what drugs were found in his system?
Methamphetamine, amphetamine, and THC.
So is that marijuana?
Yes.
And then 6.9.1, what is this? Hold on, what is this a report from?
From the DCI about alcohol level in his urine.
And was there any alcohol detected in the defendant's urine?
No.
With regard to the conversation that you had with the defendant in the back of the squad car, do you remember the defendant saying, quote, "It took something to break me to show the world"?
Yes.
And that was shortly after he had been placed in the back of the squad car after he had been arrested. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
And what did you take that to go to?
Objection. Also speculation.
Asking. Sorry, Your Honor.
No, that's fine. The witness is entitled to answer if he knows.
He acted, we were questioning him about Bush's getting before.
So at this time, the 3 homicides and the 1 person that was died.
Correct.
I have personal instruction. Yes.
Can we just do a mic check to see?
Sure.
You sound a lot better than you said. And do you also remember when you were sitting in the back of that squad car with the defendant saying, quote, "I'll never do it again. I feel so much better"? How did you take that?
Objection. Speculation.
That he would never do this again, killing people.
And do you remember him saying, "I love my babies. Tell them I'm sorry"?
Yes.
Once again, what did you take that to go to?
That he would no longer be released from custody.
Well, what would he be sorry for?
Objection. Speculation.
What do you think he meant? that he started? Speculation.
All right, overruled. As part of the conversation, since this witness was the second part of the conversation, I do believe he's entitled to answer if he knows.
That he killed 4 people.
It's because the other things that he told you, that deal with him doing anything.
No.
Did that actually deal with him seeing or claiming to experience something?
Yes.
So the only thing that you guys talked about that the defendant did, what was it?
Hitting.
Hitting who?
Hitting them, each of them.
And who was them, each of them?
The 4 people that were inside the shed.
And what are those names?
That is Ramon Cooper, Amanda Barber, Brent Brown, Caroline.
So the only thing the defendant talked about doing actions is killing 3 people on this date and the 4th one later on.
Correct.
And you also remember him saying, I want to take them all down.
Yes.
And what did you believe that was related to?
More people involved in what he explained was sex trafficking.
And connected to taking down the previous 4 people on that day.
Correct.
We saw on that date of June 5th, 2024, that you and Sergeant Payne spoke to the defendant. Remember watching those videos?
Yes.
Was the defendant the first person you guys spoke to on the scene?
No.
Other people were spoken to before you guys spoke to the defendant. Is that
Correct.
in fact, was Larry spoken to?
Yes.
Was Matt spoken to?
Yes.
Was Lon spoken to?
Yes.
Was other officers spoken to?
Yes.
So you guys had spoke to a lot of people before you even spoke to the defendant. Is that safe to say?
Correct.
The purpose of that was trying to gather information of what had happened and what you had walked into.
Yes.
And it was after speaking to them, you guys spoke to the defendant, and he admitted to you that he hit all of them. Is that my understanding of the events?
Correct.
And in fact, he told you what he used. Is that my understanding?
Yes.
And you guys located it because of where he told you it was.
Yes, exactly what it was.
And did you guys immediately arrest him after he told you those 2 things?
No.
Did you do some further investigation?
Yes.
And in fact, did you guys go to the shop to see if that item was where the defendant told you it was?
Yes, certainly.
And did Sergeant Payne find that item exactly where the defendant said it was?
Objection, lack of personal knowledge.
Your Honor? Thank you.
Yes, you did.
And so, you went to this barn or shed, right?
Yes.
How big is this?
It's very, very large. It's approximately 40 by 60 feet, I estimate.
How would you compare it to the size of this courtroom?
It's similar size, just maybe slightly smaller.
So, a very, very big building.
Yes.
As we saw from body cam footage and exhibits, is there a lot of stuff in this building?
Yes.
How would you describe the amount of stuff in this building?
It was, you had certain areas you could walk. It was very difficult to get around things. It was very congested.
In fact, where Amanda Parker's body was found was even stuck between 2 of them.
Correct.
The path that appeared that she was going was blocked with stuff.
Yes.
So would it just took a very long time to process and search for every item in this building?
Yes.
If you were not given the exact location and description of the murder weapon, hard to find.
Very.
Do you think it's possible that you may never ever have found it?
Yes.
And so the fact that the defendant told you where it was that pretty helpful?
Yes.
And was that the only item the defendant told you what it was, where
Closing testimony there in that Iowa courtroom. Let's bring in our guest to discuss all of this in this case. In New York, we have trial attorney Mackenzie Joy Brennan. Nice to see you. Okay, so this is an interesting case because you have this defendant who is pointing the finger at a different person who's his father. And these murders, these 4 brutal murders happen on the dad's property. But the question is, as we are wrapping up the state's case in chief, do you think that the defendant will take the stand to tell this jury why he didn't do it and his story? But then that kind of opens the door to some previous statements, including things like, I hit them, I have no regrets, and I did it to make a movie if he opens the door. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that the door opening is going to be very risky. We saw it a little bit, I think, in the cross there. Certain doors were opened about what this defendant said in the car. I think it really depends on where this defendant's state of mind is now versus immediately after the incident. I know that we've heard that there were some substances in his system, and they might account for how trying to think of a more respectful way to say unhinged, but how out of touch with reality he seemed based on these statements that we know in the immediate aftermath. I don't know if this is his state of mind all the time, is the bottom line. If it is, and you know, I think it might be because you hear a little bit about this sex trafficking motive, and that always suggests this weird vigilante justice type. You know, it brings to mind Pizzagate and crimes like that. So he might be out of touch with reality, and those folks are less likely to want to listen to an attorney advising them, do not say anything, it will be damning to you.
But he was speaking to police and seeming to be open. Do you think this is a situation where his attorneys will say, yes, you should take a stand? We know that's always very rare, but with them taking the position of this being an alternate suspect, do you think there's a chance at all?
There's a slight chance, and I feel like that chance depends on him being fully substance influenced when he made claims like, my head feels so much better now, this was for a movie, and that when he's not under the influence of substances, he is totally clear-minded and great at convincing people of his position. The likelihood of that, I think, is pretty slim, and thus the likelihood that an attorney would advise him to testify, pretty slim.
Thanks, Mackenzie.
Fascinating case, because in this one there, you have him pointing the finger at his father. We're following the case in Nevada where it's pointing the finger at
son, husband.
I mean, family members.